This is The Mummy, one of the most beloved adventure films of the 90s. A movie so fun and so quotable that it's easy to forget it almost never got made at all. For nearly a decade, Universal Studios tried and failed to bring this story back to life. Directors walked away, scripts were thrown out. One of horror's most legendary filmmakers had his entire vision rejected, and during production, its own leading man was accidentally hanged on camera and stopped breathing.
So speaking of The Mummy, is it true that, is this the one that you almost died?
Nearly. Well, I was choked out accidentally. There's a hanging sequence.
This is the story of how a cursed production somehow became one of the most successful blockbusters of its decade.
Mummies.
To understand how messy this production really was, we have to go back to the late 1980s. Universal wanted to revive The Mummy, the classic 1932 Boris Karloff horror film, but they didn't want to spend much money doing it. The studio's plan was simple: turn it into a cheap, unstoppable monster franchise. So in 1987, they brought on George Romero, the director of Night of the Living Dead, to write and direct it. His version was a silent, emotionless killing machine bent on wiping out humanity. Romero eventually lost interest and walked away entirely. Universal then brought in horror author Clive Barker, fresh off Hellraiser, who pitched a dark, violent version set inside a Beverly Hills museum. The studio passed. Director Joe Dante came next with a moody reincarnation love story, reportedly eyeing Daniel Day-Lewis for the lead.
Abandoned my child. Say it louder. Say it louder. I've abandoned my child!
But the budget talks collapsed. Romero actually returned in 1994 with a second attempt, a zombie-style horror film. Universal rejected that one too, for being far too frightening for a mainstream audience. Wes Craven and Mick Garris were also approached to direct. Both passed. By 1997, nearly a decade had gone by with no movie to show for it. That's when a director named Stephen Sommers called producers James Jacks and Sean Daniel with a completely different pitch.
I'm Stephen Sommers, the writer-director of The Mummy.
Not another horror film, but an adventure movie, closer to Indiana Jones, with the mummy as the monster standing in the hero's way. Sommers had seen the original 1932 film at age 8, and it left a mark that outlasted every other Universal monster.
It was the one horror movie as a kid that scared the hell out of me. All the other ones, like Frankenstein, he was kind of tragic and sad, and Dracula was sexy and kind of cool. But the only one that really scared the hell out of me was The Mummy.
There was just one problem. Sommers told the studio he'd need at least $15 million for visual effects alone, at a time when Universal wanted the entire films to cost that much. But Universal had just suffered a box office disappointment with Babe, Pig in the City, and badly needed a hit. They gave Sommers the green light, and the budget eventually ballooned to $80 million, nearly 8 times what the studio had originally wanted to spend on the whole project less than a decade earlier. With a director locked in, Universal turned to casting. The role of adventurer Rick O'Connell was offered to Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Ben Affleck. Every one of them passed. It eventually went to Brendan Fraser, fresh off George of the Jungle. For the villain Imhotep, the studio cast South African actor Arnold Vosloo.
Arnold Vosloo.
Vosloo.
And even his casting came with a strange test. Sommers wanted to shave his head for the role, but wasn't sure what was underneath.
You know, let's shave your head, when we do some tests for the film, the first week or so, and, if I don't like the shape of your head, I'll put a wig on your head, and...
So then you had to shave your head every day?
I had to shave my head every morning, yeah.
Filming took place largely in Marrakesh, Morocco, out in the Sahara, and conditions on set were brutal.
You filmed a lot of this in the deserts of Morocco. Right. And as I'm watching that, I'm thinking, what kind of critters were you dealing with on a day-to-day basis out in the desert?
Sand, flies, the heat, camels, plenty of camels. Noisy, rebellious camels. But I got on pretty well with them, actually.
Rachel Weisz spent 2 weeks learning to ride camels at a ranch outside Marrakech before filming even began. And the training left its mark.
We had to spend about 2 weeks learning to ride camels at a camel ranch place in Marrakesh.
Vosloo had it worse, walking barefoot across baking sand dunes in character as the stoic, dignified Imhotep.
One day we were shooting and I had to walk down this immense sand dune, and of course I'm barefoot in the film, and the sun was baking on this thing for hours while they were setting up, and Steve wanted me to walk down very stately, you know, as the priest Imhotep supposed to walk down, and I handled it for like 20 yards, and I said, the hell with this, and I just started running down the sand dune, shrieking like a girl.
At one point, filming a slow, stately walk down a dune, the heat finally broke him. But the most terrifying moment of the entire shoot had nothing to do with the desert. It happened during a hanging scene. To get the shot as real as possible, Fraser performed the stunt with an actual noose. Sommers felt an earlier take didn't look convincing enough and asked for one more. The rope tightened for longer than intended. He woke up on the ground with a stunt coordinator clapping and calling his name, half-jokingly welcoming him to a very small, very unlucky club of actors who'd survived the same kind of accident on set, including Mel Gibson on Braveheart.
The world was sideways and there was gravel in my teeth and everyone was really quiet. And there was a stunt guy, the coordinator was there and he was going, Brendan! Brendan, wake up! And I'm like, oh, what happened to this? Congratulations, you're in the club. Same thing happened to Mel Gibson on Braveheart.
The dangers on this shoot weren't limited to Fraser either. Rachel Weisz was once manacled to a stone altar while a live rat crawled across her chest, an idea Sommers came up with on the spot that wasn't even in the script.
It wasn't in the script, actually, the rats. It was just an invention by Steve on that day. So they brought in rat owners and their rats.
Some of the film's most memorable practical sequences were just as risky, if far less dangerous. In one continuous shot, an entire library sequence sends dozens of bookshelves crashing down like dominoes. It took a full day to rig the shelves, and the crew only had one real attempt at the shot, since resetting it wasn't an option. While the human cast battled heat, ropes, and rodents, an entirely different battle was happening back at Industrial Light and Magic, building a convincing, screen-filling mummy made of shifting sand and shattered muscle had never really been attempted at this scale before. The team spent months modeling a full digital skeleton and musculature before ever adding skin, just so the characters' movements would hold up under close inspection. Even the film's soldier mummy characters, wrapped head to toe in bandages, were designed as a deliberate throwback. Sommers described the whole approach to the creature in blunter terms elsewhere. As visual effects supervisor John Andrew Burton Jr. put it, the entire goal was a single moment of total belief. When The Mummy finally reached theaters in May of 1999, it was released just 1 week before Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. By any normal logic, it should have been buried. Instead, audiences fell in love with it anyway. The film went on to earn more than $400 million worldwide, becoming one of the biggest hits of the entire year. Sommers later recalled test audiences reacting so strongly to Vosloo's villain that executives worried people weren't cheering loudly enough when the hero finally killed him. What makes The Mummy's success so remarkable isn't just that it made money, it's that literally every single person who tried to make this movie before Stephen Sommers thought they knew what audiences wanted, and every one of them was wrong. Romero's version was rejected for being too flat. Barker's version was rejected for being too disturbing. Dante's version couldn't get funded at all. Nearly a decade of horror professionals attempted to crack this story and failed, and it was ultimately saved by someone willing to make it fun instead. The film's success sparked 2 sequels, a spin-off franchise, and years of merchandise. But there's a strange, almost ironic postscript. In 2017, Universal tried once again to relaunch The Mummy, this time as the launchpad for an entire shared universe of monster movies, with Tom Cruise, the very actor who once turned down Rick O'Connell, finally starring in a Mummy film. That reboot was a critical and commercial disaster, and it collapsed the studio's entire cinematic universe before it even got off the ground. 18 years apart, Universal made the same mistake twice, trying to force a big, dark, universe-building blockbuster out of a story that had only ever worked when someone let it just be fun. Stephen Sommers' Mummy wasn't the safest version of this story. It wasn't the darkest or the most prestigious or the version any of horror's biggest names had fought to make. It was simply the one made by someone willing to remember why he loved the original in the first place. Sometimes the version of a story that survives isn't the one everyone assumed would win. It's the one nobody else was brave enough or foolish enough to try. If you want to see what happens when a studio tries to force the opposite lesson 25 years later, go check out the 2017 reboot, if you dare. And if you're in the mood for the real thing, The Mummy is currently streaming on Peacock alongside its first sequel.